Hello everyone and welcome to my Wednesday wrestling vlog. Now in this vlog I'll be talking about, I'd normally be talking about Raw, SmackDown and TNA Impact, but I can't talk about what's been happening in TNA at the moment as they do not have a channel to broadcast on in the UK. Ever since January 1st when the Bravo TV channel closed down, they've essentially been without a home in the UK. They've been putting their videos online, episodes of Impact online, but it's a really dodgy system and I just can't be asked looking for a better recording of Impact. So pretty much this will be just WWE I'm talking about until TNA finally gets things sorted out and finds a channel. Main topics at the moment with WWE. Shawn Michaels will be inducted into Hall of Fame, which I was expecting ever since he retired last year at WrestleMania. I'm surprised they didn't do a Ric Flair and have him inducted the same night as the night before he actually retired. But as it was streak versus career, we kind of thought, is Taker's streak going to end? Is HBK going to stay, and or will he retire? So they probably didn't want to induct him into the Hall of Fame too soon. But this year it should be a good induction. I think Shawn Michaels will be the main highlight of the Hall of Fame. Unless they announce someone else who's, but I can't think of anyone bigger than Shawn Michaels to be inducted. But unless they manage to get Sting, which would be interesting to say the least, because they are in Atlanta for WrestleMania, which everybody knows was the home of WCW. So it may have a strong WCW vibe in this year's Hall of Fame induction, and maybe even a few guest appearances at Mania itself. As far as I know, Sting and Kevin Nash are no longer signed to TNA, and they may have re-signed behind the scenes, I don't know. But if they're officially not part of TNA, then there is nothing stopping them from being either inducted into the Hall of Fame or even making a guest appearance at WrestleMania. Whether anything will come of it being a sort of WCW themed, being in a WCW area, we don't know, but we'll just have to wait and find out. And the other big story regarding WWE this week is, technically Shawn Michaels was last week's news, but I didn't do a vlog back then. So, but the other big news for WWE is that the Royal Rumble will now have 40 participants, which means it'll probably be 20 from Raw and 20 from SmackDown. Well, probably about 17 or 18 from Raw, 17 or 18 from SmackDown, and a few one-off appearances or legends. I expect people like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, maybe Ron Simmons, or Doink the Clown, or even Beth Phoenix making another appearance in the Rumble, or even they may decide to debut Awesome Kong as to be the third woman to appear in the Rumble. And if she actually cleared, if there were quite a few people in it and she came in and cleared the Rumble, it would be quite interesting. So, because I believe she's passed her no-compete contract from TNA, which means she could appear in WWE at any point. So how they're going to bring her in, I'm not sure. Whether she'll be to do with Beth Phoenix and Natalia's storyline, or whether they'll bring her in as like a female member of Nexus, we don't know. But Kong is coming, and she should make an impact, and hopefully they'll improve the women's matches, which have been pretty stale. I mean, the best one in recent memory is the one at TLC. Beth Phoenix and Natalya against Lay Cool, mainly because of Beth Phoenix and Natalya, not because of Lay Cool, because they've basically been ruining the Divas division for the past 2 years nearly, is it? Yeah. About that, anyway. But pretty much all the time it's been PG. What else? Now, as far as I know, Taker is currently, well, of course Taker's out with injury at the moment, but if his rehabbing goes well with his injury, he will be back in time for WrestleMania, but that's only on the very plus side. So if it takes a bit longer, which as he's getting older means that it takes longer for him to rehab an injury, he may not make this WrestleMania. If he does make it to WrestleMania, I expect that he'll probably face Wade Barrett, simply because it was Wade Barrett's led Nexus that helped Kane bury The Undertaker alive back at Bragging Rights, when, if you remember back in 2003 when Mr. McMahon faced Undertaker in a buried alive match, it was Kane who helped Vince bury Taker alive, and it was Kane who he faced at WrestleMania the following year. So I'm guessing that it won't be, they'll probably drop the Undertaker Kane storyline when Taker comes back. They're not going to re-pick it up because they've also moved on and out with Edge and Kane. I suspect that if Taker doesn't make it back for WrestleMania, then they'll probably go with Wade Barrett's sort of Nexus Wolfpack that he has on SmackDown, and have them face CM Punk's Nexus, and like probably the winner gets to keep the Nexus name and the loser has to disband. Because it's pretty, I mean, pretty much he's got Wade Barrett's got 4 members: himself, Heath Slater, Justin Gabriel, and Ezekiel Jackson. And Punk's now got 5 members. He's got himself, Husky Harris, Michael McGillicuddy, David Otunga, and the new guy who looks sort of like Batista, who we don't know his name yet. But Barrett could add more members to his Nexus Wolfpack. He may reintroduce Michael Tarver if Michael Tarver comes back, or when Skip Sheffield comes back from his injury, he may go to Wade Barrett's Nexus rather than CM Punk's Nexus. I'm liking the direction they're going with CM Punk, because I think CM Punk makes a good cult leader. Yeah, they tried to do that with the Straight Edge Society, which kind of fizzled out as they started releasing members of the Straight Edge Society, and CM Punk got injured. But now CM Punk's back. I think he's doing well as the cult leader of Nexus. Now, one thing that's a bit confusing was the Nexus initiation's quite brutal, especially Husky Harris's. And on that same episode of Raw, John Cena said ass, which is quite a rarity on PG. Now, it made people get the feeling that they were maybe moving away from PG, and then this week on Raw, Cena apologised. Cena had apologised on Twitter for saying ass, and then he was saying poopy this week on Raw, which just makes it sound even more kiddie. And then he says, "Oh, it's the best I can do with PG," and which basically reinforces the fact that WWE is PG, it's staying PG, and we're stuck with PG, which personally I think it's half of it is down to it being PG and half of it's down to bad writing, because if you remember, prior to the Attitude Era, that had blood, that had swearing, sexual storylines with the divas, and it was still PG. And SmackDown, of course, has always been PG ever since its inception. And that's why a lot of when they had brand exclusive pay-per-views, the SmackDown pay-per-views tended to be better, because they were TV-14, but they crammed all the more adult-oriented content from SmackDown into the pay-per-views because they couldn't show it on the weekly episodes. So like that's where you got the classic Judgment Day 04 match between Eddie Guerrero and JBL. So you know, personally, I think that if they're gonna go back to TV-14, or at least for Raw and the pay-per-views, I reckon they may do it after WrestleMania because it'll be a new year for the WWE, and that would not, it'd be far enough away from Linda McMahon's election to make it look like it wasn't linked to do with the Stand Up for WWE campaign and all that. But then again, it may be, after, if they do go back to TV14, it may not be until after WrestleMania 30. The reason I say this is because if you remember back at WrestleMania 20, the tagline was it all begins again, and the 10th anniversary, every 10 WrestleManias is a good point for them to reboot the company. And if also I believe and that will take place in 2014, and I believe that in 2013 their Mattel contract expires. So if they get the action figures with a different toy company that doesn't require them to be family friendly, then and also if Linda is standing for the 2012 election and then loses, then it should be far enough away for Vince to say, look, okay, we did PG for a bit and now we're going to back to TV14, which I think would get pretty much a lot of adult viewers back to the WWE. Then again, it may be too little too late if they do that, and they may just stick with all this kiddie rubbish that they seem to be obsessed with at the moment. I mean, the old school Raw that was on back last November was a pretty decent episode of Raw, and it was PG, but well, except for Mae Young, but it was, you know, but the wrestling were good, the storylines were good. You know, it were a good episode. Right, even the little campy backstage segments, like with Tony Atlas spraying WD-40 on his arms, they were still funny and enjoyable. So maybe they can make, you know, I'd rather them like go to TV14 and make a bad TV14, just basically the same as they do and only with blood and swearing. I'd rather make a good PG product and then maybe evolve it into a TV14 product, or maybe just a good product full stop, rather than what they're doing at the moment. But I mean, some of the stuff I think is better than others. I mean, Kane's storyline with The Undertaker I thought was good. Kane's storyline with Edge I thought was terrible, especially I mean, it's the fact that during the Undertaker-Kane storyline, Kane had like this sinister background music during his promos, and they were really good promos. They drew you in, you know, about him being the devil's favourite demon, and it worked. Then when you got to the Edge storyline, they had Edge running all around the arena with a dummy pallbearer, and I believe they did set a video of it to the Benny Hill music. If they didn't, they should have done that, because it was that sort of thing. And you know, you know, and it just basically undid all the good for Kane that Kane's previous storyline had done, and it kind of basically set Kane back 5 or 6 years. So as for the you know, and the Nexus storyline, for the most part, the Nexus storyline has been good, except for when I think John Cena had got too much power over Nexus too quickly. I mean, the fact that he took out all the members of Nexus in the same night at TLC, and then the fact that he was fired for 1 month but appeared every single week. I mean, couldn't they have just gone 1 week? Even if they just had Cena appearing as Quan Cena in the Dark Match main event, they could have just kept him off of television for just 1 week. Just 1 week, just to show that he was fired. You know, it just kind of like, I mean, we know that when someone's fired in the WWE, it doesn't mean fired. When someone's released, it means fired. But when they're fired, they're not fired. They're just either taking time out or off with injury or whatever. When Taker got fired by Vicky Guerrero at One Night Stand 2008, we knew it were a storyline. We knew Taker would be back. We know now Taker's been buried alive that Taker will be back. We know that Christian will be back. We know that pretty much everyone who's not there at the moment will be back at some point. Well, everyone who's like either injured or storyline fired. Except, you know, people like Matt Hardy or MVP, they probably won't be back. But I had a point somewhere. But it's the fact that, you know, they could have at least tried to sell that Cena was no longer part of the company. I know they moved his profile from the main section to the alumni section, but just at least give us a break from John Cena. I mean, one good thing, of course, about the Nexus storyline is it's kept John Cena out of the WWE title picture, but then that hasn't been going too well either at the moment, because I don't like a weak heel champion. I think a weak heel champion doesn't do any favours to anyone. The Miz has been a weak heel champion at the moment due to the fact that he has not had a legitimate title victory. He, if it weren't for Michael Cole, Jared King Lawler would be champion. If it weren't for putting Randy Orton onto a broken table, he wouldn't have. Well, Randy Orton would be champion. And it's the fact that he hasn't really solidified himself as champion. I'm hoping that if the Miz I'm hoping that the Royal Rumble, the Miz managed to retain fair and square against Randy Orton in the title match. Not that I don't want Orton to win it, it's the fact that if Orton were to win it, it wouldn't be any much of an achievement for Orton, because if they were making Miz play within the rules and then Orton beat him, it wouldn't be much of an achievement. I much prefer a really strong heel champion and then it looking like the face challenger is not able to beat him, and then when they just manage to do it out of nowhere, it's a much more of an achievement for the face, and it's you're sort of thinking, they can't possibly, you know, basically, you know, where the storytelling needs to work, it needs to be like with Star Wars. You need an Empire Strikes Back. You need it to make it look for the good guys there's no way they can win, and that makes the Return of the Jedi work so much better. Excuse the slightly nerdy analogy there, but it's the point that you need it to you need to basically put your good guys in a situation where it looks like they can't win, but people are still rooting for them to win, and then when they do win, it feels like a real big achievement. If you've got a weak heel champion, then they could just easily walk over them, so what's the point of them really trying, you know? And on that note, I shall leave you for this week. Please rate, comment and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.